Everyone, please stop what you're doing. Gather around. I have something very important to tell you about.
Did you know that in Dune, there are apparently Vikings? That's right. In Dune Prophecy, Ragnar Lothbrok is here. Gone are the days of fighting the English or French. And now, there is only one enemy sandworms. Hello, everyone. It is I, Amanda. We are here today to discuss Dune Prophecy, Episode 1. It did come out. I did watch it, and I have thoughts. Before we get into this, just heads up, spoiler warning. Like, literally the first point in my notes is super spoilery, so you've been warned. Quick synopsis of this episode. We're basically learning about the history a little bit of Dune. We're learning about this world where, we had these wars against the machines, and out of that, one of the things that rose up was this sisterhood. We learn a little bit about the Bene Gesserit and how they started, and we also learn about how they have ties to the Harkonnens and the idea of the titles coming into play and people maybe not using their last names as much as a result of that because no one liked the Harkonnens even back then. Also, I love how we're secretly kind of getting a little bit of a House of Harkonnen vibe. That is something that I wanted. And I'm like, in a way, it's kind of like that. A little bit. It's more like House of Bene Gesserit. But because we have Valia, we kind of have a little bit of House of Harkonnen vibes here. Harkonnen, I don't know. I guess you could say it either way. I feel like I go back and forth, so my apologies if that bothers anyone. So we get a little bit of that history, and then we jump 30 years forward, which still is way in the back because this is still over 10,000 years before Paul Atreides was born. And with this, we're establishing, I think, what the conflict is going to be and the premise is going to be for season 1 of the show, which is talking about, or potentially for the entire show, it's talking about this idea of the Bene Gesserit trying to get someone in the court to rule all of the empire, trying to basically get one of their key players there. And they've just gotten a hold of the rights to train the princess. Yeah. Who is, going to inherit the throne. And that's Princess Ynez. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Ynez also is going through this marriage in agreement where they're uniting two houses because her dad needs a big army to deal with the Fremen to make sure the spice can flow. The spice must flow. And they just tied the knot, had this engagement ceremony. We also have this other character that comes in, Desmond Hart, and he survived a attack from a sandworm, and he believes that there are, or at least he says he believes, that there are allied forces that belong to the Emperor who are secretly trying to steal his spice. So that's what he thinks is going on. He's come to the Emperor to tell him this, and also is looking for a place in the palace to work for the Emperor. That's basically what's going on. He also seems to be doing his own thing and might have, I don't know, burning powers, fire powers, fire starter. I think my favorite thing in this episode, one of the things that I was really grateful that happened, is that Pruitt, who is the kid that Ynez is engaged to, dies thanks to Desmond's fire powers. We don't know what those are. It could also be poison, actually, I'm thinking, but the good news is that Pruitt is dead, which is good because he was giving me like major kind of Dudley vibes. I would say almost Joffrey vibes, but he didn't seem as like crazy or sadistic as that, but definitely like Dudley from Harry Potter vibes, Dudley Dursley. And I was just like, get rid of this kid, and they did. So yay! But also, maybe not yay, because what is up with Desmond's powers? So Desmond is the character that Travis Fimmel plays in the show, and he is very Ragnar in the show. I just gotta say, even the voice, it just feels like he's doing Ragnar, but in Dune. But I don't hate it. I actually kind of love it. I think this is a character that Fimmel is going to be really good at playing because it just seems like his type of character. He always kind of plays these rough around the edges, but like kind of smart, ingenious, just rough characters, rough and tumble smarties is what I would say. So that's what we're going to see with him here, I think. And it seems like he has his own idea of how he wants to influence the Emperor. Also, the Emperor is just getting influenced by everyone in this. Like, Mark Strong's Emperor is having a rough time. He is being manipulated by everyone, and I feel like trying to pretend that he wants to do whatever anybody else does. I feel like that's not how an Emperor should be, but anyways, clearly that's why the Bene Gesserit are trying to change that, the sisterhood. So Desmond has this power. and he can, I don't know, burn people up from the inside is what it seems like in this episode. That's what he does to Pruitt, and it seems to be what he does to the sister who is also stationed with the Emperor, the Truthsayer, potentially from a distance, if that's possible. So what is that about? Where is that power from? Is it because he survived the attack from the sandworm? Is it something from the sandworm? Is it something else? Is it a power? Is it a poison, potentially? It could be anything, because there's a lot that we haven't seen. And that's my favorite thing about the show, is that it's, once again, it's giving me some Penguin vibes. I don't love it as much as Penguin, but it's giving me a little bit of Penguin vibes. It's just giving me a lot of Dune vibes, in the sense that what isn't said or what isn't shown is more interesting. So it's about subtext, and it's about kind of trying to figure out what's going on in the world without being necessarily given all the information. You just get little bits and pieces, and from that you kind of have to weave this tale of the world. So I like that. I'm very intrigued to see where this ability, or what this ability is, where it comes from. So hopefully we'll get more of that. I'm sure we will. I'm also wondering, is this something that is part of working against the Sisterhood? The Sisterhood is obviously dealing with this threat that they feel is coming their way, that they were warned about, and it's believed that it could potentially destroy the Sisterhood. So is that part of Desmond's plan? Is that something else? And, who is working to destroy the Sisterhood, and why? And is that even their aim, or is that just a thing that might happen as a result? I don't know. There's so many questions, and I love that about it. I really like Yanez as well. I feel like she seems like a pretty cool character, and I can't wait to see more of her. I like how willful she is. I like how strong she is. There are a lot of strong, cool women in this that are just interesting. The Empress is also one. So I can't wait to see more of those characters and how their stories unfold, and just seeing them, I don't know, just have to deal with complex situations and find ways around it, and watch them survive. Hopefully they survive. I guess we'll see. I'm also interested to learn more about the sister training in this. We get a little bit of a glimpse of that, and I find it's fascinating. I think the fact that it is, so minimalist is also interesting. It feels very cult. It kind of is giving Handmaid's Tale, but what if the cult was just run by the women for the women almost? What if they were obsessed with procreation, but in a different way in terms of getting power? And I also am curious to see where we draw that line between trying to get the power and wanting to do this for good, but also in a way being obsessed with having that power and writing that narrative. Where do we draw the line between serving the people and serving ourselves? And who's out for what? What are people's real motivations? I think we're seeing little glimpses of that, and I can't wait to see more, but we only get really little glimpses. I also love Jen. I think Jen is a really cool character. I'm already super intrigued, and I'm very interested to see more of her dynamics with the other sisters. We get a little glimmer of that in this episode, and I can't wait to get more of it. I think the look of this show is also really amazing. There's a directness in the cinematography that kind of contrasts with some of the indirectness of the story. The story feels like filling in the gaps is a lot of where the intrigue comes from this story, but the cinematography feels very direct. There's a lot of centered shots. There are some really cool extreme close-ups. We get some in the scene where Desmond comes and talks to the Emperor, and his Truthsayer is trying to read Desmond to see if he's telling the truth with his story. And you get this shot of her eyes opening, and then this shot of his eyes frantic. And it made me think, what's the cinematography trying to tell me here? Is it that he is a little bit wily and he is able to kind of sneak around her truth saying? She can't get a clear read on him. Or is this her trying to look into his mind potentially and look back to what he saw and see if it's real, but all she can get is this panic from him that feels legit, but it could be something else? I don't know. There's a lot of cool scenes like that. There's a lot of cool and intentional shots that I am curious to see how that plays into the show more. It feels weird, and I like that it feels weird. So I'm definitely intrigued with the show. I'm curious to see where it goes next, but I will say that episode 1 didn't fully hook me. I'm not sure if I'm going to really love it or if I'm just excited because it's Dune at this point. Although I think there are going to be some really amazing performances in the show either way. Definitely intrigued to see where it goes, but just not quite hooked. So I would say right now, I think I'm feeling either a 3 or 4 out of 5. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say 4, just because there's so much interesting stuff happening, and it's not like the show is really doing anything wrong per se. It just needs more episodes for me to really be pulled in, I think. But we'll see. Maybe I'll get another episode and I'll be less pulled in. I hope not, but we'll have to wait and see. Next week, we'll find out. So those are my thoughts on Dune Prophecy, episode number 1. Let me know down in the comments what you're thinking of this show, if you're loving it, if you've read, any other books that maybe connect to it that you would recommend that I check out. Obviously, I've read the first Dune book, but that's all I've read thus far. So I would love to read more if there's any recommended reading that people have. I don't know if I should wait till after the show, though, and let it tell its story first and then maybe read after. But, I'm always intrigued in the Dune lore. I think it's a really cool world. And I love this idea of it being a rise against the technology. So we kind of lose some of the technology that was advanced, which puts us back. I just love that Dune is cyclical. The history of it feels like we're in the future, everything's really advanced, then we kind of have to go backwards because in defeating the technology, we're afraid of it. So it feels both futuristic and somewhat archaic. It feels a little bit apocalyptic. It's just got such a cool style to it across the board, whether we're talking the books, the movies, either of the movies, either the 80s or modern. It's got a good look. And I know it's hard for a book to have a good look, but you get a vibe for the atmosphere that I think is just so unique. So it's a really cool world, and I can't wait to explore more of it through the show. Hopefully, that's where I'm at. Let me know your thoughts. I'll see you next time. Until then, stay nerdy.